Well, we are talking caregiving again today. I thought it was important to take a closer look at families that have unpaid caregivers. And as you know, that number is just continuing to grow. In fact, there are 53 million Americans who are doing some form of unpaid caregiving for a family member. That's a lot of people. Who are these people? Who are they in the family? How did they get convinced or pressured into being the caregiver? What did they give up? And how much is that worth in real terms? Well, hi, I'm Nancy Cogar, and welcome to Boomer Time. I'm so glad you're here today, and I have a special guest in the hot seat who I will introduce you to in just a few minutes. But we are talking caregiving, as I've mentioned, and it really is such a problem, as I said last week, that we have either people who are needing caregiving, people who have done caregiving, people who are going to do it in the future, and like I said, those who are going to need someone to care for them. It's always the best, as I always say, to plan and prepare so that you are not stuck in what is becoming an ever-increasing crisis as far as caregiving in this country. I'm going to talk about that today, too. As far as value, well, unpaid caregiving, remember, unpaid, so these people are giving up something, right? So what does that look like? The National Alliance for Caregiving and the AARP looked at that number, and it just came out in June. So what's the value? Well, close to $1 trillion. That's how much unpaid caregivers are working. It's got value, and there's always a cost. Like I said, whoever does that has to give up some things, maybe a career, maybe a job opportunity. It's most certainly time. And then there's the strain of emotional and mental awareness and health, right? Well, I wanted to take a look at who in the family, more often than not, is moving into this role. Well, it may surprise you, or maybe not, that it's most often women. Women are taking on the role of unpaid caregiver. Now, you men out there's some of you that are doing it, but I'm going to jazz you a little bit today and give you a little hard time and challenge you, most of all, because I've got my favorite caregiver in the hot seat today, and that's my husband, Gary Cogar, who is a caregiver, I don't know how many times over, but you are certainly experienced with that. So I'm glad that you had an opportunity to sit down and let me grill you, and we can talk about things that'll maybe encourage more of the men out there to get involved to some extent.
Well, good. I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad to talk about this topic.
So, Gary, you have been a caregiver, as I mentioned. You are currently in a caregiving role.
I am taking care of your mom.
Right. So that's kind of unusual, isn't it? We've got women taking care of the family members. I've got my husband taking care of my mother. So that's your mother-in-law.
It is. Yeah, that's a tough one.
Why do you do that?
Yeah, multiple reasons. One, you have a full-time job. I'm retired. Even though I still continue to work and do things, it's easier for me to spend time with your mother than it is you. I think people look at all kinds of things, but one is financial. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah. Well, even, I want to talk a little bit more about some of the things that you've done.
Okay.
And you are an unusual caregiver, given your background. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, too, when we come back. But I'm going to take a break. And before I do, I just wanted to mention that 75% of the caregivers out there are females. So we're going to talk about how to get them some help with this really tough burden. Welcome back to Boomer Time. I'm Nancy Cogar, your host, and I am so glad you're here today. We are talking caregiving, but we're taking a closer look. Who are these unpaid caregivers taking care of older family members? Now, you know, there are caregivers that have to take care of individuals who may be disabled, but we're not talking about that today. We are talking specifically aging adults and aging parents, really, that are needing help in their older years. And joining me today is my favorite caregiver in the world and my favorite person, Gary Cogar.
Well, thank you.
You may notice that the name Cogar, right? That's
Yes.
because we're married. Okay, so what I was really wanting, of course, was you to talk more about being a man, because you are a man, but you have an unusual background. So you spent the first 20 years of your adult life as a firefighter and paramedic, correct?
I did in Sarasota, Florida. That's correct. Hey, you know, working a full-time job in that field puts you around a lot of people that are elderly. I was in Florida where the population was
Oh, yeah.
extensively elderly. So you learn a lot. You learn a lot about caring for them.
So how does that translate into being an unpaid caregiver later in life?
Well, I would think that's a lot easier to get paid and care for people than it is to not get paid and care for somebody. But as far as a translation, it's more personal because this is family, you know, and that can go both ways.
Right. Well, and I wanted to talk about some of the top excuses or reasons. I shouldn't say excuses, but reasons people say they can't help. But don't want to talk about that yet. I did want to ask you, why do you think there aren't more men taking on the role as caregiver?
Well, I think other than people that have been in the field, paid professionals in the field, I think a lot of people think, well, this is not my duty to do this. I don't have a real responsibility. I got to work and go out and do my job and focus on that. So why would I do something like that for free?
Do you talk to your friends and tell them that you're a caregiver? Do they have certain responses, things that they say?
I think most of them say, wow, that's really difficult. How do you do that? And I'm willing to share with them, because it's still family. You should do things for your family. You should care for your family, just as an obligation to someone that probably spent a lot of their life caring for you.
This is true. So you touched on two things that I wanted to follow up and ask you a question about, and that was men need to work. Well, that's not
I said so they say.
Yes, that's not necessarily true anymore, is it?
No, I mean, women are working full-time jobs just like men are working full-time jobs.
Right. So that traditional kind of stereotype is still there, but it's not there the way it used to be.
True.
Yet, older daughters, eldest daughters, they're the ones that are in this role.
Yeah, and I had older sisters, and it wasn't my two oldest sisters, but it was my third oldest sister that took care of my mother and father when they were aging.
Right.
And but we were a little different. Our dynamic was we gathered together, we talked about it, and we backed the sister that was doing that, both financially and whenever we could help her with time.
Well, and that's unusual
It
too.
is.
So,
It is.
how do you determine what your role should be? I mean, if there's a man out there that's thinking, I do have a career that I've spent a lot of time working on, and I'm making decent money for my family, I'm not willing to sacrifice that. Well, that is a consideration that you need to take. But what else could they do?
Well, I mean, not only backing financially, but they could take into heart that there's got to be times they have to fill in that shoes. Go and say, I know you're doing this, but when you need a break, I'll fill in that time. So participation in that area is important for everybody to say, let's share a little of that time.
Right. So I wanted to talk about the top reasons or excuses, as I call them, of why siblings won't help.
Okay.
Okay. You
Go
ready
for it.
for these?
Yeah.
And I'm going to
I'm
ask you
listening.
what you think.
Okay.
So Excuse number one, so this is the most popular, is I don't have the time.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I think everyone is pressed for time these days, but you make time, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, that excuse goes the other way. When you were a child, you would not put up with that if your parents had said, "I don't have time for you." You better
Some of
have
us
time.
may have faced that, I guess.
That's right. So now you got to say, "I need to have time for you."
But there's always a measure of time. So I
True.
would think that the key would be find out how much time you do have.
Mm-hmm.
How can you rearrange your schedule so that you can give the other siblings some relief, respite,
Yeah.
especially if they're at home.
Yeah.
You know, that's important.
That's communication. You need to talk to the others involved. If it's just a husband and wife, talk to each other and say, "All right, let's look at this week-long schedule and when can I fill in what is appropriate."
Well, the number two excuse is I don't have the money.
Okay. Well, I don't know if a lot of people have the money. That's probably why so many people are put in the position. The parents didn't have the money to pay for full-time care, so the parents now are relying on their children to help. So what do you have to do to get the money? What do you do?
Right? Or do something.
Or do something, yeah.
You know, I do talk about the fact that it is all unpaid for the most
It is.
part, but there are more estate planning strategies, I'll say, where you can put caregiver agreements in place. You can tie that to your inheritance. You can tie it to payments that can be made. So once again, it takes planning, but these are options that are available for people.
True, and I think part of it is looking at this a lot earlier than later. So the sooner you
Ding,
look
ding.
at this and start saying, "Hey, we need to start preparing for this time in our family's, mom, pop's life. Like, what are we going to do? What are they doing?" Sit down, talk with them. What are you doing? What can we do to be there when it's time if this happens?
And oftentimes the communication is really the hardest part.
It is. It is. It's
Yeah.
a hard thing to talk about.
It is. It's an important thing to talk
It
about,
is,
but
but
it is hard.
difficult.
Yeah. And it's more often than not when people come to me, it's where the family explosions happen.
I can see that.
Yeah. How do you avoid a family explosion?
Well, once again, communication, talking early enough about it kind of prepares that all involved for the later times.
Well, and your parents, I want to talk about your parents because, you, especially your father, if it's okay if I share.
Sure.
Your father was a wonderful man, and he ended up having some dementia
He did.
later in life.
Yeah, about 4 to 5 years of it.
Yeah, and that's a special circumstance, I think, that makes it even harder.
Yeah, it does. Because they don't understand what's going on. So, and then my mother also later, same thing.
Right.
So.
But as a caregiver, are there certain things you should let go and other things you shouldn't in terms of, caring for someone who's got dementia?
Yeah, if you're specifically talking about a person that has Alzheimer's or dementia of any form, is understanding that they don't know what's going on themselves. So compassion is huge. Not arguing, not getting combative or something. Understanding they see things the way they see them, and to be more flexible about just agreeing with them. Like, it's okay. As long as they're not getting harmed,
Right.
be a little more agreeable and work with them.
Flexibility, stability, being there. I think you have to have a conversation and talk about what you can invest and make that investment. It goes a long way, even if it's just a small investment.
I agree with that.
Yeah. I will be right back, folks. And if you've got a question about caregiving, you can send it to me at nancycogar.com. If you've got a situation that you went through that you want to share that. I love to hear your stories, and you can reach me at nancycogar.com. We'll be back in just a sec. Welcome back. This is Nancy Cogar, and I've got Gary Cogar, my husband, and the caregiver of my mother, his mother-in-law. Imagine that. In the hot seat today. You've been very mild-mannered, Gary.
Well, I guess that's my personality.
It really is, but I wanted you to make a challenge people to become more involved, especially the men out there.
Yeah. Well, Whatever you think your role is as far as a man, there's times you have to change that a little bit and man up. You got to take care of business. And family is an important part of life. You have to reach out and dig a little deeper and help out. And that's what it is. It's helping out time.
Yeah.
And it's tough.
Maybe there's some things you just will delay getting.
Yeah, I mean, I've given up some things in my life because my family's important. And I think sometimes you got to search inside your heart and go, hey, how important is family? And give up a couple things. Time is one of them. You know, you may not be able to spend as much time on the golf course or playing games and stuff, but you got to get out and take care of things.
I forgot to mention excuse number 3,
Oh boy, go
so
for
I
it.
wanted to go back to that. So excuse number 3 is, I can't bear to see mom and dad like that. It is difficult.
It is. Yeah, I mean, it's not comfortable to see our parents in any type of inability to do things you used to witness them do. Like my father, as an example, growing up, my dad could do anything. I was amazed. I mean, from mechanical things to everything. And when I saw him not even be able to do a small thing, it was tough. But then at the same time, I thought, well, my dad trained me how to do a lot of things. So I didn't know how to do things. So I'm going to just be the big boy and help my pop.
And, you know, even when it comes to my mother and my father, but, you know, before that, I do what I can. And, you know, you got to run with the baton and you got to look for help.
Yeah. But you have to be supportive all the time of each other because each one gets a little weary and you pat each other on the back and say, hey, we're going to get through this together. And I think that's a huge thing, especially with husbands and wives. We're going to work through this together.
I was going to mention that, you know, this is really best functioning as a team effort.
It is.
Whether it's a family team or a husband and wife team.
Yeah. Do some work at recognizing that in your partner. You know, are you struggling right now? Can I do something? Or, hey, I'm struggling. Can you help me out a little bit this week? I'm just struggling.
Yeah. I was looking at some quotes. And there were a few that I thought were especially meaningful about caregiving. It's that the journey of life that as a caregiver is really just helping one another or another walk them home. So someone might do that for me someday. Someone might do that for you.
That's true.
I just wanted to give that some thought. You know, you need to look. It's uncomfortable to have to, you know, help with showers, help them eat, help them change diapers for incontinence. That's not an easy thing.
Yeah, and you know, the other thing, when you spend enough time with somebody, you've heard the stories over and over. But you know what? Sometimes you need to hear them over and over and over because it makes them feel really good to tell stories.
Yeah.
And so be a good listener.
Yeah, sharing something that there's a reason that's so important to them. Well, you know, I mentioned supports, and there's lots of supports out there, but I wanted to talk about options because I think there are those, you know, for geographical reasons or, you know, maybe they've got too much on their plate. Maybe they've got somebody they're already caring for. You know, there are reasons sometimes that you can't do this. You know, we got to acknowledge that. But as far as options are concerned, I don't think that we've really addressed that issue sufficiently. Because, you know, not everybody can afford assisted living or even nursing home care or has even planned for any of that, and it is terribly expensive. So that's just out of reach for some folks.
Yeah. Once again, you know, it's discussing things early enough.
Yeah.
That's important.
Yeah. There's just really no easy answer for that one.
There's not.
But that's my mantra here, isn't it?
It
Plan,
is.
plan, plan.
It is.
So, and the government really hasn't figured this out either. But, you know, I don't know if we should be expecting whether the government should do it.
I don't know. It's not the government's family, so it's your family.
Yeah, I do think that if people are in desperate care and can't take care of themselves, then the
Yeah.
community has a
Right.
responsibility to care in some way.
Yeah, that's different. And when I think about going to see your mom, she's excited to see you. She's excited to see me. She's not excited to see care workers. She's excited to see her family.
Yeah.
So that's important. I think everybody needs to take that pill and swallow it. That's your mom. That's your dad. That's your grandparents. Whatever it is, they're a big part of your life. They want to see you.
Right.
They want to see
And
me.
I will tell people out there, even though I do this for a living, it is not always easy when it's
not.
your own family,
It's true.
because they don't think of you that way. They think of you as their daughter, their son. And you have to enter the room with that kind of perspective.
It helps.
It does. Do you think that this just requires some kind of cultural change? I mean, I think about some of the things that we spend so much time on, even if we're volunteering. Is this something that could be something where someone does that as part of giving back?
I do. If I look back all the way back to my grandmother, there was more of a family nature back then where grandma stayed at home and the whole family participated in that care. I saw a lot of good things in society back then because grandma felt most comfortable staying at home. If that's the case and they can, I think they should stay at home as long as possible before there's any need for assistance.
Right. And that involves planning.
It does.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, Gary, any parting thoughts or challenges? I've been trying to needle you about challenging the men out there who are not caregiving. So now's your last opportunity. What would you challenge men out there that have been hesitant to get involved with the caregiving? Maybe their older sister is doing the plowshare of the work, and what would you say to those that really could do more but haven't so far? Maybe they can't figure out how they're supposed to help, but what comes to mind?
Well, you definitely wouldn't want the same thing done to you. You wouldn't want someone to have you doing all that work. So don't leave that up to just one sibling to do all that when you wouldn't want to be put in that same position. So you got to toughen up and say, we need to divide this up evenly.
Yeah.
And sometimes one of the care work brother or sister really likes doing that. You should support that. For the ones that chose to do that, that's a good thing. But when it's not the case, you should find a way to evenly divide up that in every way. But I think the most important for men to understand is that mom of yours or that dad of yours, they want to see you. So don't just think it's divvying out the money. You got to be participating in there physically.
Yeah, when I go to a lot of the institutionalized, and I hate that word, people,
Yeah.
let me say assisted living, and some of the more chronic care, the worst thing in the world I see are individuals sitting in their wheelchairs, kind of slumped over in their rooms alone.
Yeah, it's sad.
It's
It's sad. I wouldn't want to be left like that. So don't leave your family like that.
No, and that's my challenge to myself every
Yep.
day and to all of you out there.
True.
I want to thank Gary for being here and being honest, and he's always very kind, so I appreciate you doing that. I'm more of the one that will challenge you, of course, so
You go.
so I do challenge you. I leave you today and say, what can you do to support a caregiver in your family? Maybe you're not involved. Maybe you can get involved. Maybe there's a way to support the caregiver and include some more time visiting your loved ones. I want you to really think about that if you haven't already. Maybe I've come off as being jab, 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 but it's all because I care about your older adults and I care about you. This is the way we're going to do it. So I thank you again for being here, and I thank you for watching. And if you've got comments, I welcome them. If you've got questions, I welcome those too. If you want to talk about planning, I welcome that. You can reach me at nancycogar.com. Everything's there, and you can reach out and let me know how we can help you. Also, I know I mention this all the time, but if you haven't already, please subscribe and like the podcast. That helps us to reach more people. So take a minute to do that and share it with a friend. We're growing, and I think that the feedback that I'm getting is that this is very helpful. So I want it to be helpful, and I want to reach more people. So thank you for joining us, and I will bid you adieu to the next time I see you. Bye-bye. They'll be like, adieu? What is
Adieu.
that?